All right. Good evening. Good evening, my YouTube family. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. Good evening. It is, what's today? The 29th? We are just days after Christmas, very close to the new year. We're going to give everybody just an opportunity to get in. But tonight, we're going to be talking about Sapelo Island, the history of Sapelo Island. But I'm going to play a video us just to kind of get us in the mood and get our energy right. Let me bring this into the screen as we wait for you guys to come on in. Let's make this full screen. I'm going to share this. Let's go back a second. Give everybody just a chance to come in while I set this up. Let's share our screen. Share the audio. We're going to give everybody just a minute to come in. Awesome. We'll play this before we bring Mr. Reginald Hall in from Sapelo Island.
This road has not been easy, forged from shame. We fight to hold on to from whence we came, stretching a lifetime, first free, then a slave. And let's not forget, the longest road yet is the one to our ancestors' grave. We've been through the valleys, but now we're on high ground, reaching for eternity. And we will not come down. We faced a lot of troubles, and the fire's still alive. Oh, against all odds, we'll make it with the will to survive. So we keep on going in the ways that we know, standing strong and holding on. Can't let my people go. No, we won't ever stop trying to keep our roots alive. Oh, and plant anew the pride that grew from a will to survive. We've been through the valleys, but now we're on high. Now we're on high ground, reaching for eternity, and we will not come down. When things are in trouble, but the fire's still alive. Yes, against all odds, I know we're gonna make it with the will to survive.
Mr. Hall, can you hear me? Welcome to the broadcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sapelo Island. I wanted to play that introduction because when I watched the videos of the island and the videos of the people, that song really did move me. And I've had you on a broadcast before. We actually had you on our Saturday broadcast some time ago, back early in the year. But a lot has happened in Sapelo Island since we've had you on, and you've done a lot of work in the last 13 years yourself. But most people don't know that the history of Sapelo Island is rich, and the history runs deep. Your ancestors literally came from the continent of Africa to Sapelo Island, and you know the stories, the lineage, you know the history, you know the culture is still alive today on Sapelo Island. So I wanted to bring you to the broadcast because I really want to share with our viewers what's happening with Sapelo Island, these stolen lands. But I wanted to start out with really sharing that rich history.
If I started out with the history, I'm going to go backwards a little bit and start today. Because
Okay.
the position we're in is rebirth. The rebirth of knowledge, the rebirth of technology, the rebirth of the people for an understanding through paperwork what has truly happened on Sapelo Island. Fourth largest barrier island in the state of Georgia. We're 11 miles long, 4 miles wide, about the size of Manhattan. And our people come from what is known as the Kizi tribe. Sierra Leone, Timbo, Guinea, and those areas is where we were taken from. But I want to start so I can give you a fast forward to then go back to 1871. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So a brief statement says, federal lawsuit settlement resolving claims on behalf of Sapelo Island descendants against the state of Georgia provides sweeping, injunctive, and monetary relief. Our lawyer's name is Reed Colfax. Attorney Colfax has to be one of the men that have come along my way in 13 years that is doing this for the purpose of solving discriminatory rights. Now, that's a big umbrella. The settlement resolves plaintiffs' long-standing litigation against the state defendants. In 2015, plaintiffs filed suit alleging that the state defendants discriminated against Sapelo Island descendants on the basis of race by providing inequitable services on Sapelo. 1871, 5 years after emancipation, my father's family members began purchasing land 1 year after emancipation. By 1871, they had the deeds and the titles in their hands. The specific tract of land that was the largest tract of land was known as Raccoon Bluff. If you go back in history, you'll understand that we live in bluffs and hummocks. Raccoon Bluff was a tract of land that 20 family members decided they were going to band their money together and legally organize themselves as an entity in the state of Georgia. Now, I just told you this is 1871. They put together what is known as the Hillary and Company, formed by 3 of the 20 families. These men decided they would put their names on this entity and amass the land and protect the unborn. They would amass the land to protect future generations of their bloodline to be on this island. In that reference point, they bought 666 acres. Now you have to wonder, was that on purpose? We know that 666 is a bountiful number for our people. Our tribe believes in that, but we were conditioned to believe that it's evil. All of a sudden, 20 family members had 20 tracts of land running east and west on the island. on the north end of the island, which is higher ground and waterfront property. But it was also our fishing hole. It was our gardens, our farmlands, our communal spaces, and our cemetery. The cemetery is gone. Under United States law, the state of Georgia violated a federal act in dismantling our cemeteries and mowing down the headstones so that we could never find the ancestor which lie dormant in that land. Those 20 families got 33 acres apiece. 20 times 33 is 666. They farmed these lands into the early 1920s. This is how we made a living. All of a sudden, here comes the Carolina Kid. 1926, R.J. Reynolds arrives on Sapelo Island, the tobacco heir. Now, through all cultural stories, this guy was a drunk on horseback, pillaging and raping our community. But because he had the economic prowess, the political connections, this guy brought President Coolidge to the island, congressional senators, you name it, he brought them down there, political. He decided he wanted to make our land his hunting grounds. By force and sheer brutality, he moved us off those lands. Inside of moving us off those lands, he scattered our family members across the country because going into Hog Hummock, which is the middle section of the island, holds most of the water, and we called it Hog Hummock because that's where we raised the sloppy hogs in muddy, rain-filled, rain-soaked roads, rain-soaked ditches, rain-soaked yards. When you have an opportunity to figure out how do we abide by the ancestors' wishes, well, there's no doubt that their wish was for us to be there forever. That's why they bought the land. Because without the land, you're not going to have the people. And that's sure enough what happened. Let's fast forward to R.J. Reynolds' demise. In 1961 through 1964, after R.J. Reynolds died, the state was considering a plan of how do we purchase these lands that R.J. Reynolds claims to own. So I'm going to ask Sister Tamara, I want to buy the Brooklyn Bridge from you, and you're going to offer to sell it to me. Well, that's exactly what the state did with R.J. Reynolds. They bought the Brooklyn Bridge, except they're the state of Georgia. They got the money. They made fraudulent land title transactions. And inside of those fraudulent land title transactions, they decided they were going to dive as deep as they can inside of public corruption. So from the 1970s to this very point, the state has been claiming our land, and we have been doing everything we could possibly do to defeat that claim. Not that this land is worth $2.9 billion. Not that it's so pristine and beautiful, which it is, but the fact is it belongs to us. The return of that land, the recovery of that land, restorative justice for the rightful ownership of that land would then bring us economic development. If you go into what we know as the Racketeering and Conspiracy Act, that means that Sister Tamara and myself are going to conspire against another for 2 or more years to harm them. That's all it is. Two people conspiring for 2 years to harm another. These people have conspired on record for 51 years, starting with the Department of Natural Resources Commissioner, each sitting governor since 1983, and the Attorney General since 1983. These powerful offices with these powerful engines have decided that Sapelo Island is to Georgia what Hilton Head is to South Carolina. They get these lands right now that are sitting raw, and I say raw to the truest form of raw, trees, woods, but there's a white family living in one new development up there. Now, how is this possible when the state is claiming ownership that this family can own this 1 acre of land, build this palatial two-story estate, and now timeshare it, which is illegal against the code, and not one of the 20 family heirs live on that land, work on that land, create import export on that land, have a farm or a tomato growing on that land. So we've looked for 13 years at what is going on. Well, we've discovered a number of things that say you have violated not only the Constitution of the state of Georgia, but the Federal Racketeering Act under a public corruption scheme. I'm going to read for a second. The settlement reached with the state defendants provides broad relief to plaintiffs. Under the terms of the agreement, the state must convene annual meetings between DNR commissioner and residents and property owners to discuss matters related to Sapelo Island history, culture, and adhere to the process for receiving proposed concept plans for the use of certain lands on Sapelo Island, and implement improvements to water on Sapelo Island, among other requirements. In addition, the state defendants are required to make substantial remediations to the ferry, the docks, the boarding facilities, to dismantle accessibility barriers that have made it difficult with persons of disabilities to travel to and from Sapelo. So they made our quality of life so bad that in the United States of America, we're not talking about third world country that has a water system problem and has not been created to be a truly functioning water system. We're talking about the United States of America on the southeast coast of Georgia, where they had to go in and say they're going to fix our water. So they made our quality of life so bad that most of our family members had to leave, not just to get jobs for economic development when we could be developed economically like no other place in the United States, but to not have to endure the quality of life that has been so diminished that we can't even get our elders to the island. So until we started this fight, we didn't have a way to get the elders in the wheelchairs on the ferry. Well, now we have a hydraulic lift. We didn't have docks that were safe and equitable under federal guidelines for measures to not kill yourself. Well, we have them now. We didn't have handicap parking. We have it now. We didn't have new docks where you're not splintered up or possibly falling through, like has happened a number of times, driving over the edge of the dock into the ocean because there's no barriers. Well, we're getting those now. What am I saying? I'm saying we're now standing up in a recovery stage. You got to understand, once you have been harmed in such a fashion that you have to stand up in a recovery stage, you're standing up a little differently. We're looking at something in history that's happened throughout time. The oppressors know that land is the only thing that matters, but we didn't have time to concentrate on that because we were trying to just survive, to live, to not be hung by trees or tarred and feathered or burned alive. You understand? We're finding our way now because we have an opportunity, not just through internet access, but through public records request and through the education of those that have come along next to me and say, hey, here goes public policy. Hey, here goes violations within federal law. Let's tackle some of these as low-hanging fruit and then have a possibility to let the state, the county, the developers, the land speculators have an ability to let them know we're not putting up with your stuff no more. Not on Sapelo Island. This thing was almost done with. We won the largest tax case in the United States of America for a Black community through McIntosh County in 2012. They almost had us off the island because I started in 2007. By 2012, they had enough of me and they decided they was going to raise our taxes and just kick us off the island. Because when I tell you 1,300% in a raised tax to a group of undereducated, underprivileged, underserved people, we can't afford that. Not only did we win that case, but to date, we have the largest genealogy study of one Black family on an island in the south coast of Georgia. The largest genealogy study in the United States of America on one Black family. It has to stop somewhere. Throughout this process of litigation, I'm so tied up with the litigation aspect and collecting data and researching to continue to win the fight on that level that I forgot I got to raise some money. I have an opportunity inside of our agreement. I'm going to read from a 32-page agreement, which is titled Compromise, Release, and Settlement Agreement. On page 9, line 29, any proposed concept plan for the use of Sapelo Island Heritage Authority lands. You remember, all they got to do in legislation is create an authority, and all of a sudden it is the defining entity that has the last word. Well, they created in 1983 the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. This Heritage Authority is governed by each sitting governor since 1983. And each one of them has been as bad as the next. Concerning Sapelo Island, I'm not talking about the politics. We won't go into that. I'm talking about just concerning Sapelo Island. Every sitting governor has gone along with the scheme with the Attorney General and the sitting DNR Commissioner to conspire against us, to harm us, to eradicate us of the land. I'm reading documents from Governor Busby to the Attorney General at that time, and the documents state, well, how do we remove the Blacks from the land? They did the genealogy study not for our benefit, but to figure out how many family members our heirs' property rights fall under. Line 29, any proposed concept plan for the use of Sapelo Island Heritage Authority by Hog Hummock residents. They changed the name of Hog Hummock. A hummock is a raised piece of forested land surrounded by marsh. Hogg, H-O-G-G, was my great-grandfather's last name because we took care of the sloppy hogs in Hog Hummock. And they changed it to memory eradication to call it Hog Hammock. But I call it Hog Hummock no matter what they write. The concept plan for the use of Sapelo Island Heritage Authority land by Hog Hummock residents or property owners received by the Department of Natural Resources Commissioner within 2 years of this date of entry of the settlement shall be submitted to the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority for consideration at a public meeting. So for the first time in the history of our people, we have an opportunity to go after, let's say, 25 acres of land. I told you there's 666 acres in the north end of the island, but 25 acres are now under the guidance of the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. That 25 acres is where our museum can sit. That 25 acres is where our Land Recovery Institute can sit. I've already recovered upwards of $4 million of land on Sapelo for my family members who called me and said they're stealing our land right now. I had it resolved in 37 days with paperwork. The bill is now going back to those family members and the land ownership rights have been restored. You can have $1 million, but if you ain't got no land, what you gonna do with the $1 million? You can't build nothing without the land. You can't grow nothing without the land. And we know that's vital for our Black tribe right now because the foods that we're eating are garbage as a whole community. There might be 7 to 12% of us that have an opportunity to eat a little better. But the majority of us are eating out of corner grocery stores. Well, Sapelo Island can change that. We have an opportunity to go after 25 acres of land, and we're putting a call out. This is the clarion call.
But before we go there, I'm gonna put up one question that was asked in the audience, and then I'm gonna play a video. And I kind of want to really get into, I want people to really see the richness and the history and the culture, the community that is, these people that are stealing this land, these entities. I really want to show our audience who's Sapelo Island, who you are as a people, and what this is. So before we go there, I have one question from the audience. What was cultivated upon the land and what might be the current value of such crop? What kind of crops?
Our crops were sugarcane, corn, greens, sweet potato, watermelon, squash, you name it, because Sapelo Island has never been touched with herbicides or pesticides. We have some of the most natural beef roaming. We have about 180 wild cow, 1,700 wild deer, if I'm correct about DNR's numbers. It might be more than that. We got the coon, we got the gator. All of this is untouched, unspoiled crop, livestock, and the dirt itself on Sapelo Island has this nitrate in it that is just unbelievable. It's nothing we can't grow on Sapelo Island. When you look at farming within itself, we just mentioned how we all eating. That's because we don't have the land to grow the proper foods, and not just grow them, but if you believe in the African ways, we have the spirituality that goes inside the food. They prayed over our crop. If you look at what we know today, there's nothing inside of food growth that has anything to do with the nutrition needed for the longevity of life. Mr. Mayor?
I'm gonna play this video. Organic produce, absolutely. Everything is organic. The land is untouched, untainted, no pesticides, no herbicides, untouched, pure. Imagine if we were eating from those lands.
That's right.
Just the thought of that. So let's play this video, Mr. Reginald. I kind of want to play as much of it as we can because I really want people to dive in to Sapelo Island. I want them to feel it because I feel it. I feel the energy. So let's play the video.
We need the land in order to hold on to who we are. The pride, the culture, the history, and everything goes together.
We must keep people away whose interest is not the survival of the culture, but whose interest is purely financial.
The will to survive, the story of the Gullah Geechee Nation, is the story of the survival and struggle of a little-known piece of of American history. But who are the Gullah and Geechee people? Where do they come from? And why is so little known about them? Join me as we go inside this society that has survived in almost total obscurity for more than 300 years. From the Gullahs of the Carolinas to the Georgia and Florida Geechees, we'll explore the history, the present, and the fight for the future, for what has been called the most authentically African community in the United States.
Walk the carry load and thing, all in these your field, all yeah with this mortar and this pestle and thing, when all that spirit been together and walk so.
This African-American woman was born and raised in South Carolina, yet she is speaking in her native tongue. The language is called Gullah, or Geechee, and it is the language and the lifestyle of more than 500,000 African Americans living along the southeastern seaboard of the United States.
We got taken from West Africa because of our skills in growing rice. Many people desired rice growers, and so Gullah people came as a result of their skills in growing rice.
Emory Campbell was born on Hilton Head Island, where he still lives today.
Gullah, which we spell today Gullah, was actually from the Gola people, Gola, which came from the Rice Coast or Windward Coast region of West Africa, as we once called it, Al-Kebula. And they were some of the rice cultivators that were brought in to harvest Carolina gold rice.
Marquetta Goodwine, born on St. Helena Island, South Carolina, founded the Gullah Geechee Sea Island Coalition in 1996. In July of 2000, she was elected chiefess of the Gullah Geechee Nation by a council of elders, and in the African tradition, assumed the name Queen Quet.
And then you had from the same region, the Gidzi people, G-I-D-Z-I, which Geechee, which we spell now G-E-E-C-H-E-E, came out of.
Along with their knowledge of agriculture, the Africans also brought a unique sense of architecture.
Tabby itself is a unique architectural unit to use to build any kind of structure because it's made of oyster shells, lime, and sand and water.
Sapelo, St. Helena Island, and Hilton Head, we consider them Ellis Island because that's where freedom first came. That's where folks had the first opportunity to buy land and live on their own land. That's where people became educated for the first time, had their own schools, and reinforcing their own education from Africa, as well as learning new things about a new life.
During the Civil War, many Gullah Geechees bought land. It wasn't all just given to us. And almost everybody I speak to, I can ask them if they ever heard of 40 acres and a mule. And they go, oh, yeah. And I said, well, what is it? And you get all kinds of answers. But normally I don't get the answer, Special Field Order number 15. And Special Field Order number 15 was issued during the Civil War by a general named William Tecumseh Sherman. And a lot of people know about Sherman's march that came through the South and burnt down everything, but they didn't know about him actually looking around him and going, well, wait a minute. There are thousands and tens of thousands of, as they called us, Negroes at that time here. that were in ragged clothing, that were on all of these plantations, because everything from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida, and 30 to 35 miles inland that people call the Gullah Geechee Nation was all plantations. But now we were the only ones on those plantations. So it's like, well, what are we gonna do with all of these folks? And so he felt like if all of it from Charleston and all the abandoned rice fields southward to Fernandina, which is down in Florida, the southernmost tip of the Gullah Geechee Nation, if they could split up the land in 40-acre parcels and issue it to each one of us, then each family would have a place to remain on themselves. Well, that field order got rescinded. And when that happened, there was a lot of turmoil. Those who had the field order issued and land issued and granted, they were fought to get the land back, ran off in some places. But fortunately, many of our ancestors had that mother wit, so they didn't go for somebody giving them something. They went to auctions and they bid on their land and they took ownership of the land. So see, when people come here now to this land that we call the Gullah Geechee Nation, a lot of times they don't ask us what we're doing, how we do it, why we do what we're doing, or anything like that. And so they don't have an understanding of what this land really means to us. And that it's not just about walking around with the sweetgrass basket on your head. It's not just about seeing someone still picking cotton or having their hands blue with indigo, but it's about what is still existing here now. And for us, land is our family and the waterways are our bloodline. And so a lot of times people will come in and want to buy it from us. And they don't understand that's like asking us to resell our entire family on an auction block all over again. So see, when them the things say, them we done had them all together.
In an effort to communicate with each other, the enslaved people combined the many dialects and customs of their African roots with those of their American captors. What resulted was a hybrid language and culture, which proved to be not only an exclusionary means of communication, but also a critical key to their very survival.
So when that throw we up, instead of broke up, join together.
We're Geechees. We're saltwater Geechees.
Cornelia Bailey, author of the autobiographical book God, Dr. Buzzard, and the Bolito Man, is a lifelong resident of Sapelo Island, Georgia.
And we were those fast-talking Geechees, and the people from the mainland said these no-talking saltwater Geechees. We can understand a thing the same because they're speaking too fast.
From island to island of the Gullah language, you will find variations of that language, just like any other language of the world. And Geechee is just one of the dialects that grew out of the Gullah language, or as linguists would call it, it is a pidgin or a bridge language, because what it does is it still has our same structure, but it has more loan words from English in it than Gullah does.
You know, the origin of the word Geechee was not necessarily a proud connection, because it was actually, it turned into something that became a put down.
Ron Johnson is president of SICARS, Sapelo Island Cultural and Revitalization Society, Incorporated, which sponsors Cultural Day, held annually on Sapelo Island, Georgia.
The slaves that were settled here on these islands had constantly connected with their culture, and they kept their language, and they spoke broken English, and their English didn't develop as fast. When the slave masters would bring slaves with him from the interior, like say from Atlanta or someplace, to buy slaves or to visit the plantations down here, and the slaves would interact. Well, you had one slave that was speaking formal English, and another slave was still speaking a real broken language, which became Geechee. Now the guy that spoke formal English would go back to Atlanta and says, "Man, you should hear those Geechees speaking down there."
We listened for the speech, we listened for the words, we listened for huna, which means you. We listened for da, which is the verb form to be, and however that's connected. And we listened for some cultural expression, like, you know, eat the diggy grave, meaning you're eating too much. We listened for the missing THs and the words that when they pronounce teeth or thief.
So if I was saying, Look at where are the going right now. Look at you, honey, better come here now. Who I juke you. Okay, that would be completely in Gullah. Now, if I changed over and I said, well, we are going, boy, you need for come here now. You ain't even want me for juke you any. Okay, then that's more Geechee because I'm trying to now convey to this person who didn't get it the first time what I actually had to say.
We've got terms that are used almost regularly. Juke is a Gullah word meaning disorderly, and that word is now used to describe a place where we go and dance. We call it a juke joint. But jukebox came out of that same word. We had the word tote often, tote. We have tote bags, that you find, you buy, and it's very expensive, but it's carry, it's to carry. You tote it on your head, and Africans tote things on their head. When African Americans visit the islands, they're first of all struck by the speech and the accents. And we always have to explain that the accent is nothing more than African accent. They sometimes want to relate it to the West Indies accent. And we usually have to convince them that no, some of us came straight here from Africa, but even settlers of the West Indies also can relate their language and their accent to West Africa. And so the gee whiz always come from, wow, you talk funny, you sound like an African. And we usually respond and say, we are.
When people come from other parts of the country that doesn't have that connection to the culture as strong as we are, it may be different, but we're all branches from the same culture.
We have our own language. We have our own heritage. We have our own culture that the rest of what people call African American, that's just a big umbrella over a multiplicity of cultures that are in North America, particularly in the United States. But we're not monolithic as people of African descent. Many of the people who are considered African American today can trace their roots back to the Gullah Geechee Nation, but they no longer hold a legacy because they don't have the language. They don't have the African traditions. They don't know how to work the land or live out of the waterways.
And that's the lesson that people can learn before they go to Africa. They need to visit these islands and hear the accents and get used to the rice dishes too, because there are some rice dishes that are used sometimes now in mainstream America that African Americans don't know where they came from and why they like rice, or why they like sweet potatoes, or why they even like watermelon, although some of us have denied that we do. Those can be traced back to West Africa, the foodways. Growing up on these islands in isolation of other cultures and other people instilled in us a sense that we know who we are, and we never had to compete with others to give us value. And so our values came straight from our ancestry.
As recently as the 1960s, the Gullah and the Geechee people practiced their religion in the tradition of their ancestors.
We traditionally seeked, and we seek through the woods. We seek God by going into the woods 3 times a day. Morning, we call it 4-day, which means before daybreak, midday, and evening. And you meditate alone in the thickest woods you can find, fearing nothing, no snakes, fair snakes or mosquitoes or anything, because we found out later that that's what West Africans did. And West Africans went into the woods because they said that's where God is. In some plantations, Christianity was imposed. In some plantations, we found out that some people resisted Christianity.
Mr. Reginald?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to share that video, and there's a couple more videos that I'm going to share on the next broadcast, but I wanted to share this video, this part 1, because I want people to really feel it. I want them to understand that, you know, this country has done a lot of damage to us, and they're continuing to do damage to us. It is our fight in this country is not over. And it is evident with what is happening on Sapelo Island. Like, our fight is not over. We had Mr. Muhammad on last week, and he talked about the fact that America had 14 million acres of farmland. And now, as a nation, Black Americans, we have 14 acres of farmland, and now we're down to 2. So our fight in this country is not over. The data shows, Mr. Reginald, that by 2053, Black America will have zero net wealth. Our fight in this country is not over. And I don't want us to get comfortable. I wanted them to see you in the now, and the 13 years worth of work that you've been doing just to hold on to the bit that you've been able to hold on to and to get back. When there's 666 acres from my notes here, that 20 family members all receive 33 acres, 666 acres that belong to y'all. Rightfully belongs to the original descendants that we now have to fight for in 2020. So this conversation is going to evolve into part 2, because there's more to the Sapelo Island that we're going to share. But I wanted the audience tonight to really understand that we're fighting for survival all over this country. And yours is right in our face.
Well, and that's the one thing I wanted to point out. We right here, right now. We're in litigation. We're in public policy. We're in compliance laws. We have taken the low-hanging fruit and made sure that the people who are oppressing have an idea of what the fight will entail to get us off of this island. But you said something very important. The people must understand, if nothing else, we're a living culture. We ain't dead talking about history. We sitting here right now living and have elders. That was my uncle on the video, 2 of my aunts. We have the people who can still tell the story. I have a great aunt right now who can go back to when she was 9 years old, having to sign a deed by the force of R.J. Reynolds at 9 years old. This is the kind of brutality that these people placed on us and are still placing on us. I have family members on the mainland don't have jobs when they can have their own business on the island. When you talk about the young generation, if I'm in my 50s, I'm talking about the 20 and 30-year-olds. But I can't, in any kind of moral understanding, go to them and say, come on, help me fight this fight. They got kids, they got jobs, you know, and maybe they're not as crazy as I am or some of us are. But the one thing that we have to do is let them know, we come back, fight for this land, your children's children still have an ability to survive on this private island. And they call it a private island because the state of Georgia claims 99% ownership. You can't set foot on the island if you don't come with one of us or on a state tour. The reason we can't bring you over at the rapid rate and rapid pace in numbers is because the state claims that we don't have docking rights. Now, we live on an island, been there for 239 years, and we have to have an entity as a state government tell us we can't dock boats on the island. They have a community dock on the island, but you can't take a proper vessel back there because at low tide, your hull will sit in the mud. But the state is now building new docks, $6.83 million as we sit here on this broadcast is being placed on our marshland side. With those new docks, I'm now claiming docking rights on an island that you can't get to without a boat, a jet ski, a canoe. Somewhere you're going to have to dock it. The thing about the docking, my grandfather bought R.J. Reynolds, and my grandfather decided to go buy his own boat. So he started hauling my family members for nothing. Now the state is charging my family members a $25 yearly pass. Hey, I know $25 don't sound like a lot, except our tax money is what puts the diesel and the boat in the water. Now, why should we have to pay to come home every single day? And then you got to sign a sign-in sheet. This is just a tracking system to see how many of my family members are coming back and forth on that boat so they can continue to try to steal that land. The less ability they give family members to come back to the island, the more we forget about it. We can stop this. Our tribe can stop this. Our tribe, as a nation of people who have already heard the story over generations, we can take this and make sure that we slow the process of gentrification. Now, don't forget, that gentrification process only comes through those that have versus those that have not. That's it.
Yeah.
But we can find our way out of this, because if you go back, and I'm going to have to say this out loud, Sherman's Field Order 15 was supposedly rescinded. Where's the rescinded paperwork that says 400,000 acres from Charleston, South Carolina, down to St. Augustine, Florida, was already given us by the field order? Do you know that 40,000 of us had already started moving back to some of that 400,000 acres? Well, we resolved 666 acres on Sapelo Island. We should be going to the World Court in Hague and disputing the 400,000. Now, we're still just going through processes. Everybody has to understand, this is just a process engagement.
Here's our
But you
magic
got to
question.
check.
And I told you this question was going to come. And on Thursday, we're going to have more information. But I told you this question was going to come. You see it on the screen. What can we do to help? We know this is gentrification on steroids. Not only we're used to seeing it in our urban areas where they're taking our houses. You know, we're seeing it in our urban areas. But to see it happen on a whole island, where you are clear that these people came straight from Africa and have been in descendants on this island for generation after generation, 200 plus years.
Yes.
This is happening right here, right now, in real time. And when we come back on Thursday, we're going to have some true steps to how we can help Mr. Reginald in this fight to reclaim the land of Sapelo Island for the descendants. Because it is, you know, we're watching this, we're living this on many levels.
And I think if we answer that question on Thursday, we could take a moment for the review of my website. It might give some clear understanding to a little bit of the position of assistance and alignment for help that we need. And that's raccoonhogg.com. RACCOONHOGG.com. On that website, I clearly point out a number of participatory engagements that can be, it can be life-changing for us.
And I went to your website today, and I'm going to it now at raccoonhog.com, and you're having some issues with your site. So wait till Thursday, Mr. Reginald, so that we can get this squared away.
Okay.
He's been doing a lot of work, everybody, litigation and staying in the fight. And it will take some of us who are, you know, have spaces and have, you know, abilities to really help. So we're going to come back on Thursday with this continuation of this broadcast and give you insight on how to help and how to spread the word, because what's happening to us is not, like I said, not just happening in our urban areas. This is a whole island off the coast of Georgia.
And we are the 4th largest barrier island. And we built our church in Raccoon Bluff that still stands today, that the enslaved built in 1866. The wood that we built the church from came from the 1866 hurricane. It's now on the Department of Interior as a National Register of Historic Places.
I'm from Savannah, which is the coast. You know, there's the Gullah and the Gullah Geechee, and you know, I always knew we were. You know, I know we're not. The people in Savannah mostly are Geechee, where you can hear the accent, you can hear the broken, and sometimes I have to be mindful now that I've, you know, moved away, and I, you know, have to be mindful to say my like in the video he was saying the THs. I do sometimes not say all my consonants when I speak, so I have to be mindful. So when people hear me speak, they always think have asked me like, where are you from? And they don't know that I'm Geechee, and I have learned over the years how to make sure I enunciate and say my consonants, because I find myself kind of skipping over. Like she said in the video, we have our own language. And I didn't know it until somebody pointed it, you know, people have made comments to me. So now I'm very conscious of the way I speak so that I can make sure I say all the letters in the words. So I'm mindful of that. So it's a whole culture. You know, this is you know, we're such a beautiful people.
If you go back to the movie Boys in the Hood, in the very beginning, the kids in school, one of them called each other a Geechee and the other called it African booty snatcher. That's just the movie. But you got to understand, this word Geechee was synonymous with nothing good in the early days. That's how it was framed. But most of us didn't understand that it was a culture. If you go back to the 1960s and 70s, we didn't know about the Geechee Gullah culture. And they only separate between North Carolina, South Carolina Gola or Gullah as the language, and Georgia, Florida, Geechee or Keezy as the language. Geechee is the language. Keezy is the tribe. Gola is the Angolan sections in which we come from that went mostly to the northern sections of South Carolina, North Carolina.
So we got a fight on our hands, Mr. Reginald. We have a fight on our hands, and the audience tonight, I know that, you know, these are people that know that want to help, that, you know, are willing to you know, fight with us in to save the island of Sapelo. We're going to have a bigger conversation again, like I say, on Thursday. We wanted to take tonight, and I wanted to introduce you to Mr. Reginald. I wanted to introduce you to the history of Sapelo. There's 2 more videos that I'm going to play on Thursday, and we're going to really dive into the specifics of how we can help save Sapelo Island, because we're watching it. We're living our demise right now if we're not intentional about doing something very different.
Oh, that sounds like a SOS to me. Save our Sapelo.
Save our Sapelo. Save ourselves.
Hey, that too.
We have work to do. So everybody, I want to thank you for joining tonight. I am Tamara Johnson Shealy. We'll be back on Thursday with Mr. Reginald Hall, and we're going to continue to talk about, you know, the island of Sapelo, and we're going to really work over the next couple of days to be real clear about the help that he actually needs. He's been doing this for 13 years.
That's right.
But at this juncture, it's really going to take those of us who are savvy in social media, or whatever expertise we have, you know, grant writing, whatever he needs. Let's make sure we pull together and help save Sapelo Island. Reginald Hall, I thank you for being my guest tonight, and I look forward to Thursday.
As do I, and thank you so much, Sister Tamara. I certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Good night, everybody. See you on Thursday, and please spread the word, share this broadcast, and make sure you join us again on this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Good night, everybody.
Good night.